Now, I know that Game Week 9 isn't even over yet, but if you know me, you know that doesn't stop me making FPL content. And in this video, I'm going to talk about players to buy and avoid ahead of Game Week 10. Couple of things before I get into the video. Apologies, I'm just going to grab my mic. Apologies for the poor audio quality. I'm away at the moment at a swimming competition. I've been cheering on my teammates, so my throat's a bit sore. You can hear that in my voice. And I've got my microphone. I was all prepared. Cameras up there, microphone, etc. But I forgot the cable that connects my microphone to my laptop. So unfortunately, you're just going to have to bear with the standard laptop microphone, but should still do the job. Right, so onto the stuff you're actually interested in. I've got a couple of projection, models and bits of data from 11ify. Like I always do every week, I'll leave a link to 11ify in the description below. I find it a really useful resource for projected goals, projected clean sheets, all of those kind of projections to help you make your transfers. So just looking at the projected goals, what I've done here is ranked, so you can see a total, that's the total for the next 6 game weeks, because it included Game Week 9, but it's still a good ranking of the top teams for projected goals, basically. You see Man City at number 1. The question is, though, with Man City, and I'll talk about Erling Haaland a little bit later on, I just don't think there are any, other than obviously Haaland, who's playing every game. I don't think there's any Man City attackers that you can actually back to play every game, or at least to a point where I would feel comfortable, picking them in FPL. So yes, the projected goals data looks good. I mean, it's pretty much 2 goals for every game they've got over the next 5 game weeks. Even when it's 1.52, that's still, you can't score 1.52 goals. That rounds up to 2. So in every one of their next 5 game weeks, they're expected to score a couple of goals. Liverpool as well. They've been really strong this season going forwards. I think Salah is just an absolutely fantastic pick in FPL. We'll get onto it in a second, but I think there's a genuine case to captain him in some of these game weeks. Arsenal, couple of tricky fixtures coming up where their projected goals are a little bit lower, and then that starts to pick up from Game Week 12 onwards. So potentially Arsenal assets off the menu for the time being, like Saka, etc., being doubtful. We'll know if he starts in Game Week 9 by... Yeah, so you'll know basically if you want to pick him for Game Week 10 because he'll start or not in Game Week 9. Spurs, I've made a couple of videos bigging up the Spurs attack. It looks like they've got a couple game weeks left of good fixtures, and then they've got Man City, but 2.14 and 2.69 projected goals. That's looking really strong for them. Chelsea and Cole Palmer, I would personally back Cole Palmer to score in any fixture, basically, regardless of the projected goals. Obviously got Nicholas Jackson in there performing well as well. Man United up there too, Brentford up there as well, and you can see the rest of the teams on the list there for projected goals. Clean sheet odds then, and I think there's a little bit of a case, barring Man City, who have just kept a clean sheet against Southampton. I think there is a small case to potentially look to downgrade some of your premium defenders if you have them. Arsenal not necessarily keeping clean sheets in recent game weeks, and match day 10 and 11, I'd question how likely they are to keep clean sheets, in and around 30%. Man City as well, I know they kept a clean sheet against Southampton. I had 2 of their defenders, I'm really happy with that, but ultimately across the last 2 seasons, they do just seem to concede the odd goal, and I would say going out every week, there's always there's a risk with every team, but especially Man City. They just seem to concede really low expected goals chances, and that just seems to happen almost every week for them, apart from, of course, in Game Week 9. So, yeah, maybe proceed a little bit with caution on Man City. One thing to say, all kind of the predicted points, projected points models really back Guardiola to do well, so he could be on the menu, I guess, of course, with Rico Lewis, but, there is a little bit of doubt, I guess, around their likelihood to keep clean sheets. To be completely honest with you, just thinking of the value of Lewis, the attacking upside of Guardiola, it's probably worth having those 2 over defenders from possibly Arsenal and Liverpool for the time being. I don't know, just my opinion and just a thought. And then what you've got here is a load of other teams. I'm looking at Brentford and Everton in particular. Brentford, I guess you can't really back them defensively. They conceded another couple of goals again this game week to Ipswich. But I would say there's a case for potentially just picking from the cheaper defenders and investing more in those further forward positions and getting those real big hitters in. I'll talk about captaincy coming up, but I think it's becoming more and more important in FPL at the moment to have a good range of premium assets in your team, because in game weeks coming up, there are times where you would want to captain a different premium, and potentially, something you could do to give yourself the budget to do that is by downgrading some potential premium defenders you have in your team. Just an idea. Some of the good cheap defenders that stand out to me, I like Mikolenko of Everton. Potentially you could go for Mazwari of Man United. Robinson of Fulham could be back on the menu. Colwell, I was going to say Colwell of Chelsea, probably not Colwell. I would say Forest for the next maybe couple of game weeks are decent, and then they kind of peter off. But with a Forest defender, I think they're a good rotation option, likes of Aina and Milenkovic potentially. I'll talk a little bit about Ray and Nori in a second, but obviously I think he's a good option as well. The Wolves fixtures do change now. They're getting a lot better. I do think they'll keep some clean sheets. They have conceded, though, the most goals of any team in the league so far this season. So me saying I believe they will keep clean sheets isn't necessarily backed up by the data so far. I'm fully aware of that. Other defenders I'd pick from, probably not that many. That's probably the guys. But yeah, I think there's a case and a conversation to potentially look to downgrade some of your more premium defenders to cheaper ones to allow you to get more premiums in, who I think will be important for captaincy. I thought I'd just go into that captaincy point a little bit now, because not only am I going to talk about captains here, I'm going to make a case for not having Erling Haaland in your team. Because, yes, he scored in game week 9, right, against Southampton. A lot of people triple captained him, probably disappointed they only got 1 goal from triple captaining him. But what I would say about Haaland is, at his price, 15.4 million, I think he's at 15 point something right now. He'd probably be a different value to different people watching this video. But I would question, paying 15.4 million, would you genuinely expect like more than 1 return per game week to be worth that kind of value? When you think of how many good cheap strikers there are in the game, I'll talk about some of them in this video, like Chris Wood, Raul Jimenez, etc., who aren't, they're kind of matching Haaland, I would say, not necessarily like for like in terms of goals, but they're like 10 million cheaper, performing similarly to him over the last 3 or 4 game weeks. So I do think, just based on that, there's a case to sell Erling Haaland. And another thing, right, I think if you're spending 15 or so million on an asset in FPL, you're kind of going to want to captain them almost every week, because otherwise there's no point in them sitting in your team. And I'm just looking at the next, what have I got here? Next 6 game weeks. I put this kind of graphic up for game week, pre-game week 9 as well. But when you look at all the premium options, all the captaincy options in the game right now, I would say over the next 6 game weeks, these 4 players would be the ones I'd feel relatively comfortable captaining. You've got Haaland, Salah, Palmer, Son, and these are their fixtures over the next 6 game weeks, right? And I would say, looking at the quality of the fixtures, how many times would you genuinely feel 100% confident captaining Erling Haaland here? Haaland next week has got Bournemouth away, who are performing pretty well, whereas Salah's got Brighton at Anfield. I think you can make a genuine case that Salah could be a better captain in game week 10. Game week 11, Son's got Ipswich at home. I'd suggest that's a pretty good opportunity to captain him. Haaland, it's a red fixture, Tottenham at home, but Salah has got Southampton and Palmer has got Leicester. So I would say those are 2 better fixtures than what Haaland has. And then in game week 13, Haaland has got Liverpool away and Son has got Fulham at home. Palmer's got Aston Villa at home as well. So, I'd suggest there's a couple of other players there that you might want to captain over Haaland. Same applies in game week 14. Palmer's got Southampton away, whereas Haaland's got Nottingham Forest at home. And then it changes a little bit for game week 15. Haaland and Salah are probably your 2 captaincy options there. But possibly for the next 5 game weeks, I think there's a genuine case to go without Haaland in your team. And also, like I mentioned that when going through the clean sheet odds as well and downgrading defenders, I think there's a case to try and squeeze in maybe 3 of these players, or you could rotate them, of course, with transfers over the weeks. But, I think you could easily see yourself captaining 2 or 3 of the players on this list in different game weeks. Just a thought, just something I wanted to expand on with Haaland and potential upcoming captaincies on other premium players. What an absolute hero Chris Wood has been this season, by the way. I think I can safely say that I think he's the best cheap striker in the game right now. But I would be a little bit concerned about his next few fixtures, right? West Ham, I think he probably scores there. Newcastle, Arsenal, Man City mixed in those next 5. They do start to get a little bit tougher. So maybe if you had Wood, I'm personally very comfortable keeping him. But with the quality of fixtures, you might want to look just elsewhere. That's just a thought, but I mean, I've got him in my team and I'm very happy with him. And I'll make an argument to the contrary of that now. He has scored 21 goals in his last 29 Premier League games. That obviously extends, 29 Premier League starts. That obviously extends into last season as well. And say, there are 38 games in a Premier League season, right? So if you imagine it was all one season put together, or just one FPL sort of season. Game week 29, a player has scored 21 goals. You would expect that from like a premium FPL asset, someone like Haaland or Salah or Palmer. You know, that's the kind of numbers you'd expect them to get. And Chris Wood at 6.2 million, I think he is now, may have gone up a little bit since then. He's putting up that level of numbers, and yeah, he's only got 3.68 XG and scored 7 goals, right? But I think his finishing has just been absolutely like so clinical, and I think that's not just, you know, an overperformance of the expected goals data. I think that's Chris Wood just being an absolutely elite finisher and really working on his game. So yeah, I could not talk about Chris Wood in this video, right? A brace in game week 9 against Leicester. West Ham coming up next, even Newcastle. I said that's a tough fixture. They have not been the best defensively in the league so far this season, right? So Chris Wood could definitely score against them, and I think he played for Newcastle as well previously, didn't he? So yeah, you got that kind of old club narrative mixed in there as well. Arsenal have conceded goals again this season, so you know they have been historically the best defence in the league over the last couple of seasons, but we have seen them concede, you know, the odd goal here and there. They didn't keep clean sheets, for example, against Leicester and Southampton back along. So wouldn't rule out a goal there. Ipswich at home is probably one of the best fixtures you can ask for. And then when I spoke about Man City and the clean sheet odds, you know, they're a team that do concede the odd goal from low XG chances. And I think Chris Wood lives off low XG chances. So, you know, those next 5 fixtures, while some of them look to be bad, he could still perform in scoring them. And yeah, what a legend Chris Wood is. I think he's definitely the best cheap striker in the game. And he's on penalties for Nottingham Forest as well. And finally, I had to talk about Rayan Aït-Nouri. Despite his team not keeping a clean sheet yet, he's still one of the top scoring defenders in the game because he's got 5 attacking returns from 9 appearances as a left back, which is just absolutely crazy. You know, the guy is basically playing as a winger for Wolves. And I said back along, you know, maybe there are multiple teams that have good chances of clean sheets coming up. You know, I thought of Nottingham Forest, Everton and Wolves as 3. I think you could rotate them depending on how you feel as well. And that's kind of what I see Aït-Nouri as being. He's just a good rotation option in your team. And I don't think, other than, you know, some of the premium defenders, there's anyone that gets to his level in terms of, you know, attacking output. It is just a case that unfortunately Wolves have not kept a clean sheet yet this season. But they have had a really tough start to things. So, you know, looking at those next few fixtures, Crystal Palace at home and Southampton at home, I would say of all the teams I've seen in the league so far this season, Crystal Palace and Southampton, in my opinion, are probably the worst I've seen so far from an attacking perspective. I had Eze in my team, so I've followed closely how Palace have been doing from an attacking perspective. And with Elise being gone, they have looked like a shell of their former selves, right? So, you know, I think there's a good chance for a clean sheet for Rayan Aït-Nouri against them. And then Southampton, well, failed to score against Man City is hardly hardly like something really to write home about, I guess. But I think they're the worst team in the league this season, the 20th best team in the league. So, you know, Crystal Palace, who struggle to score goals, Southampton, who are the worst team in the league, in my opinion, so far this season, in the next couple of game weeks. If there was ever a time for Wolves to keep clean sheets, and they're both at home, it's then. And then they got Fulham, Bournemouth and Everton as well, which I think you could suggest are pretty good fixtures. So I think the clean sheet odds for Wolves go up now based on, you know, the quality of fixtures. They've had rubbish fixtures basically to start the season. It is a case, though, looking at those expected goals conceded, 14.95 from only 9 games is pretty woeful. But yeah, the fixtures have been difficult. They get better. He's been absolutely insane from an attacking perspective. And I think he works quite well in a defender rotation. If there were game weeks where you weren't comfortable starting him from, I think you could get other cheap defenders in your team as well to rotate nicely with him. So yeah, could not talk about him as an option, right, after another goal in game week 9. So yeah, here he is. All right, and that's the end of the video. We actually managed to get through it. My voice is really struggling. I've been cheering on my teammates at a swimming competition this weekend. So, yeah, I've had a really good time here, though. Apologies for the lack of microphone. I did bring the microphone. The intent was there. I bought the microphone in the top for it. It's just unfortunate that I didn't have the cable to plug it into my laptop. So, yeah, we live and we learn, right? What else have I got to say? I left it till the end because I had a few people asking about it on YouTube. I didn't want to like brag about swimming or fill the channel's content with swimming, but I've actually had a pretty decent competition. I've done 3 races so far. 4 races so far actually, 2 100 freestyles and 2 50 freestyles, and I did a lifetime best in each swim, so each swim got quicker. So I've actually had a really good weekend. And you probably, if you've watched any of my live streams, you've probably seen that I've had a shoulder injury for the last couple of months. I keep bleating on about my bloody shoulder injury, but that hasn't really come into effect. And well, setting lifetime best for the shoulder injury, I will happily take that. I'll be back home on Monday, so probably expect my next video to come then. Tomorrow's going to be a really long day of swimming and traveling, so I probably won't upload on Sunday, and you should see a video coming out from me again on Monday. So anyway, enough swimming talk. You're probably not interested in that. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.